Hey everyone, it's Joe here. So yeah, another haphazard stream today. So I don't have any kind of major concrete plans in terms of actually getting any coding done today. But I said I'd give it another go in terms of just actually streaming what I'm doing and trying to get set up for all of this live streaming stuff. So I'm doing something which I would never recommend anybody doing, which is copying a link from one computer to another. But yeah, so I'm just trying to get my stream set up. The so in the description you'll see like, oh, I'm trying to build a social networking platform for retro gamers called RetroSumo. But before I kind of get into that and get into a regular streaming pattern, I do want to get my kind of basic stream up and running and looking good. So I'm hoping this URL actually works. So let's just open this up, make sure it actually shows the chat. So yeah, it looks okay. And if I pop into Twitch real quick, onto my channel, and I'll just say, hello world. Okay, so this is working, which is great. So if I okay on that, great, okay. So that's that. I'm not sure why my video is not working. I'm not sure. So my camera is plugged in, but it's not on right now. So let's see. Oh, it's come up as a different camera for some reason. So let's go for high quality. Whoops. Let's cancel that and try that one again, shall we? Okay, so that's looking okay. I'll just move it around a little bit. I think I need some lights in here. It's quite dark. So just give me 1 second. Okay, still pretty dark. Some lamps and stuff as well. Okay, number 1. Great, that's better. Okay, so I'm still streaming from my parents' spooky house. So the chat widget seems to be up and running okay. So let's see. Can move that a little bit over to the left. Yeah, it looks alright. Okay, so I am going to right. So I still need to do something with this like area down the bottom of the screen. This black bar at the bottom on the stream. So I'm thinking, some branding, links to my Twitter account, my, YouTube, Twitch accounts, etc. But I also would really like to use that space for something kind of useful. So I'm thinking the title of the stream, so that anybody who's joining the stream, late will be able to see what it is that I'm covering, and also a very short to-do list. Ideally, that's updated in real time as I actually work through some of the items in the project. So I'm going to get that set up, not right now, but another time. I'm just happy now I've got the actual chat widget displaying. Probably customize that at some point, but for now, looks great. That's fine. So yesterday I was actually getting this iMac set up for developing the RetroSumo project. The one thing I hadn't finished yesterday was actually installing Xcode, so I'm just going to go and finish that now. So let's see, bring up downloads, and let's install. So this is, as I mentioned yesterday, this is a 2011 iMac, and as a result, the newest operating system I can put onto it is Mac OS High Sierra. I know there's hacks to like get Mojave running and stuff like that, but I don't really fancy employing any hacks to get this working. So I'm just going to run with Xcode 10.1 rather than use some kind of hack to try and get up and running on Mojave. It's not really important what version of the OS I'm on, I don't think, for this particular project anyway. So that's all good. Right. So that's going to take a while to expand by the looks of it. So let's go and do something else. Right. So if I go into, what am I doing? Into iTerm. Okay, so Spectacle's not running. So let's see, let's get Spectacle to run on launch. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that should allow me to move it around nicely. Perfect. Right, let's see. Let's go into web. Okay, so I deleted that test project that I started yesterday. What will I do today? That's a great question. So I might as well start bootstrapping out the project for building this app. So I'm going to say Laravel new RetroSumo, which is just going to install a fresh Laravel project into this web directory. And in the last stream, I went through like setting up Valet and parking it and setting up HTTPS and all that kind of stuff. So if I go to retrosumo.test now, boom, that's working. I am going to say Valet secure just to serve it with a self-signed SSL certificate so that it actually shows not as not secure like it shows up here, but as a regular secure site. So it's just restarting Nginx. Eventually that will finish. And this is a pretty old machine, so things don't happen quickly, but that's okay. Oh no, it's in the wrong directory. Okay. So if let's see, RetroSumo, and say Valet secure. We'll get there eventually. So one of the things that's actually quite new in Laravel 6 is you need to do a little bit of something a little bit different when it comes to authentication. I thought auth was okay. Authentication. So you need to do something a little bit different when it comes to auth. Before you could just do this, right? So you say PHP artisan make auth, and it would like make some, or it would basically scaffold out authentication for your app. But that's been removed in Laravel 6. So when we went to the documentation, there's a couple of things in here around what we need to do to actually get this up and running. So you'll see here, we require a new library to be added into the project. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. If we reload this, it should be now on a secure connection, which isn't really important, but other than me not having to look at not secure up in the top left hand corner every time I start working on this project, it's worth it for that alone. So I'm just bringing in this Laravel UI project. So this UI project includes all of the functionality to scaffold out user interfaces for Vue, for React. I think it might even have Bootstrap and things like that in there as well. All the stuff that used to be available through like the preset command, which I think is now gone. If you have a look, yeah, there's no more preset command in here. So what I can do then is I can say PHP artisan UI. I don't want Vue, I want React because I'm a React dev. And I want some auth views to come in as well. So then if I follow the directions and do build, it's going to basically build the client-side functionality that I need for like a bare bones React application, and also all my authentication views, which actually are there already. So you'll see now that I've run that, I have the login and register commands up here. Unfortunately, I don't have any styles because because of this build that I'm doing, I'm after losing Bootstrap, which is fine because I'm not going to use Bootstrap anyway. So I'm not overly pushed about what these look like right now. The main thing is that I can actually submit the forms. So if I say, okay, so that's not working because I haven't the database tables built or anything like that. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to need to do here. The first thing I'm going to do is actually go into MySQL and create a new database called RetroSumo for this project. And then, so that's actually built out those assets. I'm guessing it's still going to be, oh, okay, so Bootstraps is still included. So I'm going to leave it in there for now because I'm not going to be taking it out quite just yet. But yeah, no, that's cool. So, what are we doing? I need to register, so I'm just going to create a dummy account here. So, if I would actually migrate the database, but before I migrate the database, I'm going to have to do a couple of changes in here. So if I open up my .env file, which has database named Laravel, I'm just going to change that to RetroSumo. RetroSumo. I'm not going to have any secrets and stuff in here, so if you're going to cry out saying, oh, you're showing us your .env file, it really doesn't matter. I don't have any credentials in here that are going to be of any use to anybody. So with that renamed to RetroSumo, I can now come back to the command line, run php artisan migrate or not. Okay, query exception. The server requested authentication method unknown to the client. I'm going to guess that this is an issue to do with MySQL 8. That's not good. Okay, let me see. So I'm just gonna check PHP MySQL 8. Yes, right. So I'm guessing it's Laravel and MySQL 8 is the problem. So let's see. Since PHP doesn't understand caching SHA-2 passwords, set the user back to MySQL native password. Okay. So what if I try that? So if I MySQL root, alter user root at localhost identified with MySQL native password by, okay, I don't have a password set for root. Can I do that? Looks like it. And let's see, so if I rerun, ooh, that worked, great. Okay, so now I'm on MySQL 8, and I've got the table migrated, which means I should now be able to register. Okay, it's been expired because the CSRF token is expired, so I'm just going to reload this page. And we'll try that again. Okay, perfect. So now I'm logged in as Joe Lennon, RetroSumo. Perfect, great. Okay, that's all done. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get React up and running, right? So instead of showing this dashboard screen when I'm logged in, I want to show a React view in here. Now I'll be replacing this entire UI, so including the nav bar and everything else that goes with it in due course. But for now, I'd just like to get React up and running, and I'd like to get React up to the latest version as well. So if we have a look in the code, we should see in package.json, it's currently bringing in React 16.2, which is actually quite out of date. I think it's on React like 19 now. So let's see. I can never remember the address for React. Yes, 16.10 too. Wow. Okay, so we're quite a good bit behind there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the latest version. So let's do that, and let's say npm install. Let's let that work away for a second. And okay, did that do anything? I'm not quite sure. Let's have a look at our package lock.json and have a look at React. 16.11.0. What? Why has it gone to 16.11? I said 16.10.2. I was on 16.11. look, that's fine. Let's have a look in here. What's this about? 16.10.2 is the latest version. Am I missing something here? What am I after doing? It's probably something to do with the way the semantic versioning indicator is flagged here. So is it something to do with this caret? Latest version 16.11. So maybe just the docs aren't up to date. So let's just go with that. That's fine. So that's 16.10.2. It's installed, so we should now be able to use any like hooks and all of the kind of newer features in React, which is good. If I have a look in Webpack, it's already using React on that app.js file. We come in here, we'll see that there's this like example component, and it's going to render it to the example thing. So let's just really quickly go into our home component and get rid of all of this rubbish and replace it with div id as example. And when we do that and load it, boom, there we go. So now it's loading a React component, and if we don't have React DevTools. Of course we don't. So let's get them added into Chrome. I hope I don't need to sign in or anything stupid like that now. Yes, perfect. So now when I come in here, we should see React or not. There we go. Wait, there they are, components and profiler. So now we can navigate through the React tree, right? You can see our props and all that kind of stuff. That's great. What else are we doing? Okay, so one of the things I want to do next is I want to get Tailwind pulled in, because I'm going to be using Tailwind for styling, and eventually I'll try and just completely reverse out all of the Bootstrap specific styling. But for now, I'm going to leave it there for the auth and just take it out for the logged in experience. So what that means is I'm going to need two style sheets now. But the first thing is to get Tailwind brought in. So if I go to tailwindcss.com and get started, I really need to create like a starter pack for building projects, because I do this so often. It's absolutely ridiculous. So npm install tailwind.css. So let's do that. I do use Yarn quite a bit, but I haven't been using it kind of recently. So let's have a look in here just quickly. So that's done. Great. So next I need to create a CSS file. So if I'm gonna create a new CSS app.css or maybe main.css file in here, let's pull in the Tailwind directives, and then we need to init our Tailwind config files. So let's do that. Boom. And what else do we need to do? So we're not going to be using the CLI, we're not going to be using PostCSS or Webpack or Gulp, we're going to be using Laravel Mix. Okay, so what we need to do is bring this into our webpack.mix.js file. So if I do that, and I can do this as well, so instead of having to, I can just chain it onto the existing calls, like that. And let's see, so resources CSS main.css is going to be output into the public /CSS directory. It's going to require, perfect. Okay, so we should now be able to npm run dev. And the next thing we're going to do is, let's see, I'm just going to close this for a sec. So that's going to give us two CSS files. They're quite big, like the Tailwind one is very big there, but it's not minified or anything, so that's cool. Plus I could use something like purge to get rid of most of the styles that I'm not using at a later point, but I'm not focused on that right now. I just want to have everything I need available to me. Same with our app.js. I'll probably break that down into like a vendors and a app.js file, a separate app.js file in a minute. But just for now, let's get our Tailwind config up and running, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to be like completely taking everything out of like I'm not going to have much of a layout or anything like that in here anymore. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go into the layouts app.lay. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to bring that into home. And then what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to, yes, load app.js. I'm going to change this to main.css. For now, we can take out the fonts because we're not using them. And that's all fine. I can take out all of this code, so I'm not going to be using it, and just leave in that div at the top layer. And that's my home.lay.php file. The other thing I'm going to change is I'm going to get, oh, can I get rid of the JavaScript in here? I can. It's going to break one thing if I do that. And that is if I log out here, I'll be able to log in, and I can use login and register and all that stuff. But one thing that is going to break by me doing this is I'm not going to have my drop down when it's responsive, but that's fine because I'm going to be changing all of that down the line anyway. So I'm not too worried about that. So I'm just going to take out that right now. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have this div ID of app in here, which we can actually take out as well, because we don't need it. Okay, so if I log back in, okay, so now we get a blank screen with nothing in it, which is fine. So what we want to do now is we want to make some changes to our JavaScript files. So you'll see here we have this like app.js, bootstrap.js, which is bringing in jQuery and all sorts of rubbish. So we can actually get rid of pretty much all of this, I think. So yeah, I'm actually just going to delete that file altogether. I don't need it. I'm going to leave app.js. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to rename this to index.js. And then what we'll do is we'll say, let's require in the app. No, we won't. What we'll do is we will say import React from React. And I need to bring in Prettier actually into this. So let's see, Prettier. So again, I'm going to be jumping all over the place over the next couple of weeks as I get everything set up for me to start doing some proper live streams where I'm just literally focused on coding. But for now, I just want to get the basics set up. So, oh man, this machine is slow. Okay, so Prettier is installed. So now, format document. How do we set up Prettier again? Let me see. So install Prettier, format document. Why is that not an option? Do I need to quit and restart maybe? So, okay, select the default formatter. We're going to use Prettier. Perfect. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to import render from React DOM. And then what we're going to say is we're going to create like a basic hello world for now, right? Why not? App component, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say render app to document.get element by ID app. Okay, and we should now set up watching, right? So, well, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set up watching, which is going to obviously, anytime I make any changes to any of my JavaScript code, it's going to rebuild. Let's see. Pull this down to the bottom. Just give me more space. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, of course. I'm after renaming it, right? So if I go into webpack.mix and we'll go index.js in here, one of the things, so I'm just going to kill this for a second. So index.js, we can go into public.js, we can delete that. And let's see, so I'm going to do the whole breaking out the vendors and stuff like that now. So if I go to front end, compiling assets, vendor extraction, this is what I want. So you can see here .js do that, and then I want to extract a couple of things. So I'm going to say .extract, and I'm going to extract React and React DOM for now. Okay, and that's that. So index.js, React DOM. The next thing I need to do is change this to look at a few different things. So vendor, or so manifest, vendor, and index. So manifest, vendor, and index. And let's see, so if we come back here, actually, do you know what, while I'm here, let's get browser sync running. So, what time of page? 5 o'clock, that's fine. So versioning, yeah, let's put it in there. So if mix.inProduction, what do we want to do? Mix.version. That also means we need to come back in here and change this from asset to mix. So let's do that. And browser sync reloading. So that's what I wanted to do. Right, so that's the last thing we want here. So if we say browser sync, and I think we can just pass in RetroSumo.test. And then now if we say npm run watch, it's going to install some additional dependencies right now. But once those have been installed, I'll be able to rerun the watcher, and what should happen is anytime I make any code changes and save it, it should actually reload in the browser. I will need to get, there's one thing that drives me crazy about browser sync, and it's that it puts like this like notifier up on the top right of the screen every time it reloads the page. But I typically tend to have UI up there, so I tend to like to move it down to the bottom left. I do like that it tells me that it's like reloaded, but I don't like that I don't like where it's positioned by default, so I like to move it down to the bottom left. So that's going to open, Safari can't open the page because Safari can't establish a secure connection. Okay, firstly, I don't want it to open Safari, so we're going to need to change that. Logos 3000 can provide a secure. Okay, hang on. Is it because we're in a secure mode? If I unsecure the site, it might help with this. So let's have a look at browser sync down here. Doesn't say anything about the TLS, but that's fine. So now when we go yarn watch npm run watch, I might install yarn just because I have the habit of running yarn watch as opposed to npm run watch just from what I do day to day. But let's see. So no, it's still not running that. Why is it trying to load it in HTTPS? What? Okay, this is weird. So, okay, if I go to localhost on 3001, it's running. What? If I go to it on 3000, it's not. What's with that? Okay. Nothing in there that would make any sense. Sync options, it's nothing like that, it's just why. I'm just going to kill the browsers for a second and try reopening them. Localhost sent an invalid response. I don't understand what's going on here. This is weird. Proxying HTTP. Okay, if I go to HTTP, assume that test. Okay, we have a problem. So it's still trying to server over secure, even though I've run unsecure. Oh, what's going on with that? Its security certificates from web.test. Oh man, okay. So I need to go valet unsecure on web. So I think earlier on I accidentally set it. I set the secure on the the parked directory, so hopefully that should fix that. shit. Okay, that's not good. So let's see. Let's see, Valet, Valet links. So there's not, what? Valet paths? Oh yeah, okay. So, Valet Park, how do I, RetroSumo, and it's on HTTP. Oh man, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's cool. So if I say Valet Trust, okay. Sorry, gone off on a tangent there. So if I Valet Forget, okay. So if I Valet Forget, and Valet Parked, and Valet Paths, there's nothing, right? So if I go here, it shouldn't just get a privacy error, it should just get nothing. No, it's getting privacy. What the Valet Restart. Bum bum bum. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Times like this, I wish I was running on one of my faster machines, but come on. Okay, here we go. Let's see. No, nothing. Right. Is it after? Chromium. What am I looking at? Okay, HTTP RetroSumo.test. Oh, come on. This is so annoying. Okay, if I come into network, disable cache, and try it again. Okay, it's better. Right, so what we're going to do now is ls, and we're going to say Valet Park, and then cd RetroSumo, and then we're going to say npm run watch, and hopefully this time we'll actually be able to run localhost 3000. We might need to bring up. It's going to open up Safari again, of course. So I need to look into that because that's quite annoying. So browser sync, browser, nope. Localhost 3000. Okay, at least that's running. Okay, so what do we need to do here? Login, joeexample.com. As you can see, our browser sync connected. So annoying up there. So that's cool. So Hello World is working now. So let's make a couple of changes. So the first thing I want to do, there's two things I want to do to browser sync. I want to get that thing appearing in the bottom left. So browser sync, notify config, can't spell. Let's see, notify false. That's definitely not what I wanted. Browser sync notify position. This is it. So notify, let's see. So proxy, I think we can just do that, right? And if I go back to laravel.com/docs, mix, and browser sync, yeah, proxy to the domain name, and then notify styles. I think we can say, really, like that? I'm not sure about that. Let me set the position to bottom. Here we go, styles. So top auto, bottom 0, left 0, right auto, something like that. Of course I need to run it again. What was the other thing I wanted to fix? Oh yeah, Safari. So Browser sync, which browser? I think it opens the default, so we could just set Chromium to the default, but let's see. Browser. Chrome, Google Chrome. Okay, so I think if we say browser Chromium, hopefully that will do the trick. And if we say npm on watch, boom, perfect. Okay, and you can see it's coming up there, right? So I go home. Perfect, browser sync connected. So the next thing I want to do is this like screen here. Instead of having to go to like home, I just want that to show up here. So what I'm going to do, there's a couple of things that I need to do to get this working the way I want it. So the first thing is, let's open up what is going on here. Come on, the keyboard is like, oh come on. All right. The keyboard is literally non-responsive there. So we want to get rid of this, and we want to do this. And yeah, I'll keep it as home controller. So what that's going to do is it'll mean that when I go here, I'll get hello world, which is cool, but I will be left with a little bit of a problem. So if I log out, and the only way I have to log out right now is to delete my cookies. So let's go and do that. And let's see. So let's reload. So the problem now is when I go to log in. What? Okay, that's weird. It knew to redirect to there. I'm not sure why. That's a bit weird. Let's have a look at. So I'm just going to look for a few things. So I know there's a reference to /home in a number of different locations. So I'm just going to change all of those. So you can see here in all of these like pre-scaffolded controllers, I'm getting a redirect to home. So let's change all those, change that, change that, change that, change this. Anything outside of there, like, doesn't matter. So this one, oops, even though that's actually gone, that welcome, so we can get rid of this file now. So move that to trash. Perfect. Okay, and auth command, like none of these are really important. Stubs doesn't matter. Yeah, we don't need to worry about any of the rest of those. That's fine. So that's cool. So I can close up all of those now. So now we're running on here, which is cool. Right. So what do we want to do? Well, the first thing we want to do is kind of restore the basic functionality that we had from before. Now, I'm not going to get into like what I want the ultimate design to look like here, but let's see. What do we want to do? We want to bring back some form of a nav bar at the very least. So let's just jump in to here. We have this components, so this isn't actually a component, so we can delete that as well. So we're just going to create a new file called app.js x, and in here we're going to import React from React, and we're going to say const app is equal to, and let's say export default app. That, and then let's, instead of doing that, let's say import app from, do that, and then let's go hello v2. It's not working, so what the hell have I done wrong? React is not defined. What? What do you mean React is not defined? Do I have any other? It is loading the vendor, right? So let's see. Oh, I wonder, do I have defer something on those? Home.play.php. I do. Okay. So let's try that. Target containers. Oh, come on. Let's go. Boom, boom. React is not defined. What the fuck? Joe, come on, man. Honestly, this is just a joke. So we can go back to all the defers stuff. Cool, low v2. Perfect. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create, so I just deleted one, but I'm going to create a new one called, or a new directory called components, and in here we're going to have nav.jsx. So let's get some stuff going on in here. So we'll say nav is equal to, in this case I'm probably going to, what am I doing? Not render. I'm probably going to want to do something with props and all that kind of stuff at some point. So I'm just going to pass some info in here. So let's bring in a nav and let's say RetroSumo. Of course, we're not doing anything with that just yet. So import nav from components nav, and let's say nav. My typing is just absolutely abhorrent on this thing. Oh man. Type is invalid. Expected a string or class function got undefined. Be helpful if I actually exported it, wouldn't it? Okay. Boom. Okay. So what we can start doing then is start applying some styling, right? So the first thing I want to do is apply just some body level styling, right? So I'm going to say class bg, let's just say gray 100 for now. Okay, so that's putting a soft gray on. I'm not even going to worry about color schemes or anything else just yet. I'll come back to all of that. But I do want to just put something other than a white background in, because I'm not going to have a white background in ultimately at the end of the day. So that's cool. The next thing is to say, okay, on our nav bar, so our nav bar is going to be full width. So what we can do is start styling this. So we're in React, so we're going to say class name is equal to bg white. Start there, and sure enough, it's white. And let's say shadow. Okay, and we will say px4. Probably need more than that, I'd say. Yeah, so let's try px8. And let's try py4. Okay, it's not looking too bad. Will we want to have margin off of the nav bar itself, or will we want the component underneath it to control it? Probably the component underneath should be dictating whether it's flush against the nav bar or not. So we'll leave that alone for now. So, you know, this isn't actually looking all that bad. The other thing we're going to do is just make this a flex container. We'll say justify between an item center. And then what we'll do is we'll wrap that in a div, and then we'll put a div in for logout, right? So let's just see what that looks like. Okay, that's kind of what I was looking for. So let's, at a bare minimum, get the logout feature that we broke earlier working, but through React. So what do we need to do that? We need it to be a form, essentially. So if we say form, there are multiple, what? Of course you want prettier, what are you talking about? Okay. So we'll say this is a button, type is submit, and class name is, I don't know, let's just say font semi-bold for now, and change this to a button. Okay. And then we will have method, I think post. If we go back to the app.play.php, I'm pretty sure there's a form in here. So, okay. So root logout, method post, display none. Okay, so let's see. But we need a CSRF token. Oh, of course we do. Okay, so we're going to need to do a couple of things in here. We could just say action is logout, and let's see. So submit that button when they click on it, which we don't need to do anything to support that. All we need to do is this. So that's not going to work because I don't have a CSRF token in, right? Yeah. So that should be enough. And generally, I prefer to like handle this in React, but I think for something like Logo, it's absolutely fine to just have a straight up form that calls it the old-fashioned way. But we will need to get a CSRF token coming in. So the way we're going to do that is by putting in a hidden form field with a name of underscore token, and the value of that is going to be equal to, we'll call it CSRF token. But we don't have any CSRF token coming through, right? So we're going to pass that in through props. So we'll get an error there now in a second. So we're going to say CSRF token is equal to CSRF token. This is a little bit hacky, and we could just like read it, you know, in here, or maybe use a hook or something. That could work as well. But for now, I'm just going to do it kind of a really crappy way and just pass it down through, through from the top level, right? So in here, what I'd like to do is get the meta tag. So if we say CSRF token is equal to document dot query selector meta name, let's see, what's it called? Excuse me. CSRF dash token, and get attribute content. Get attribute content, and then we say CSRF token is equal to CSRF token. And if we come back in here and we inspect this, hopefully, there we go. So we log out, and we're logged out. Perfect. Okay, so we've restored that functionality, which is good. So I'm just going to log back in. And we are again. Okay, so that's really the kind of the basic scaffolding that I wanted to get done. I just want to check the browser sync is working as I would hope. So let's just go to here and say hello v3. Boom, perfect. Okay, that's great. So what time have we? 25 past, 5 minutes to go. We could just spend a little bit of time trying to get this stuff over to Tailwind, but it'd probably take too long, so I'm not going to bother. Okay, so now that we have the basic mechanics back, there's a couple of things that I want to do kind of in the next video. So I probably will start like working on it properly in the next video. Took some notes before on what it was that I actually wanted to do in like the first actual content videos for this particular series. So I was going to do all of this in like the first like real episode, or the first real stream, as opposed to one where I'm kind of experimenting, just seeing can I get up and running. So I didn't like let anybody know that I was actually streaming today, because I wasn't really all that keen on having a big audience for it or anything. Not that I'm ever going to have anything like a big audience. But yeah, I wanted to get the Laravel project backend scaffolded. I wanted to add React. I wanted to add Tailwind. I wanted to do the auth scaffolding. I wanted to build the initial homepage React components. Okay, so this is really where I think we'll start off the next time. Is essentially like the heart of RetroSumo is going to be posting content. It's going to be a feed of posts. So the basics that we need to get in place are to have a form that allows you to post something and to show a feed of posts. And then obviously we're going to add a ton of functionality around that over time. Other thing that I wanted to do in the first episode, and what I will do on Monday, is build out tests for any APIs that I'm writing to basically store all of this data in the back end, implement those actual APIs, and then connect up the React front end to those APIs at the back end. and maybe even stretch goal write some dusk tests for the front end as well, just to make sure it's behaving the way I want it to behave. So that's what I was thinking. I mean, other things that I'd like to do in the first few streams, just to give you a flavor for what it is that I'm going to be working on. I want to add in user avatars. So pretty straightforward to do that, of course. So just allow somebody to upload an avatar, right? But there's a lot of things that you kind of need to take into consideration. So what if somebody doesn't have an avatar? Do you want to just show like a default user image, or do you want to use, there's a nice library, I can't remember the name of it now, for that plugs into Laravel, which gives you those nice, like, images where you have a color background with somebody's initial, with the initials of their name in the avatar. That's pretty nice. That's a nice simple way to kind of add a bit of diversity as well in terms of the avatars for default avatars for where people don't have one uploaded themselves. But there's also things that you need to consider then around, okay, well, like what about the sizing? I mean, so if somebody uploads, a large avatar and I want to serve different sizes based on, where I'm loading that avatar, then how do I do that? Do I, have something like the intervention library in place, which is going to allow me to basically create different versions of an image when it's uploaded? Do I do that, when they upload the image, or do I, put it off into a background job? Do I, not do any of that and actually just upload it to something like Cloudinary and allow them to handle all of that? Do I use Laravel Media Library, or is it too overkill at this particular point of the project? There's a whole lot of decisions that need to be made around what the best approach to do or to take is when it comes to avatars. I'm probably going to keep it pretty simple for now and just have a straightforward upload. I will keep avatars like on a separate table, so I'm going to have like an images table, or maybe even a files table, where you'll be able to store anything that's uploaded by a user and then reference that from the user table. You need to get into like, do we need a user profile table, or should I store everything on the user's table itself? Again, my default will be to keep things simple, and then to, if I need to move things around later on, to move them around later on. Other things I want to get done, editing a user's profile, so maybe adding a little bit more information about themselves, like a bio, a location, also things like, their time zone, their language, all stuff that, obviously I'm not going to have functionality that is time zone specific or language specific from day one, but when I do start adding things that are, locale aware, then it's going to be important that I have those settings on a per user basis. And obviously we can default, at the very least, we can default language based on the user's browser language and things like that. But it'd be good to have that information in there. So having the ability to edit a profile means there's going to be an API. I want to have tests around those APIs. I want to wire up that API to the front end. Adding the avatars then to the existing UI. So when you see the feed of posts, anytime that you see a post, it's going to be posted by a user. So anytime you see a user, you should see their avatar. So you need to add that in there. When you're posting, sometimes it's nice to have like a little avatar in the form with your avatar as the user that you're logged in as. Maybe that avatar should show up in the top right of the navigation as well. So we'll look at things like that. And then another thing is adding the ability to edit and delete your own posts. So when you post something, you should be able to edit it and delete it. Editing is one of those tricky ones where, okay, if you allow somebody to edit something, then do you now need to store a full version history of all of the changes that they've ever made to it and things like that. So we'll kind of dig into a little bit around that and see what are the best approaches out there. Are there kind of libraries out there that might be helpful for storing history, showing an edit history and a change log on posts, so that you can see the context over time. And then getting into more functionality, so things like adding reactions. So you might start off with a simple like feature, but then expand that out to allow you to basically attach different emojis or whatever and have different types of reactions to posts. Going past that, you've got commenting. So when you start talking about comments, then you have this whole like added complexity of, do you allow threading on comments? So people to reply to different comments, and how many levels deep can you go, or is it infinite, and all of that kind of thing. Another thing I'd like to do is, so RetroSumo is going to be like a retro gaming social network. So unlike Facebook or even WorkVivo, it's not really all that vital that your persona on RetroSumo is necessarily your real name. So I think having like a display name and a username is going to be useful. And the reason that I like the idea of bringing in usernames is that I've built at mentioning functionality into platforms in the past, and when you have at mentioning by a person's name, it can actually be quite complicated to implement that. It's not impossible, but it's far from it. In fact, we've done it in WorkVivo. We have like full name mentioning functionality, but it isn't always that straightforward. So if it's username based, then obviously you know that the token after the at symbol, like you're not going to have any spaces in it, for example. So it makes it easier to do those lookups and know like when to stop looking for a user. So we'll look at adding usernames. We'll look at mentioning in posts and comments. You have the whole area then of notifications. So if somebody is mentioned in the post, send them an email. Somebody reacts to a post, leaves a comment, or replies to one of their comments. All of those kind of different events triggering off notifications. As soon as you add notifications, you need to consider notification settings, so allowing people to control whether they get specific types of notifications or not. We'll have email at the start, but there'll be other notification channels that we'll probably look at adding down the line. Eventually, I'd like to build a mobile app using React Native that'll sit in front of this, and we'll be doing things like push notifications using APN, the Apple Push Notification Service, using Firebase on Android. So a whole lot of things to do there. Then there's the idea of showing the notifications in the app itself. So we'll be using, Laravel has a database notification channel that will allow us to do that. We'll then have to show those in the UI. You'll have marking notifications as read. There's a whole ton of functionality, and all of this stuff is actually pretty basic, but we haven't really even gotten into the crux of what this platform is actually going to do by doing all of this stuff. So then you're getting into, okay, the post form itself, enhancing that, facilitating things like Markdown. I'm actually going to switch over to full screen because you're just seeing a corner of me here. So, I'm gonna have to fix that. So, so excuse all the stuff in the background. This is the study in my parents' house. So you'll see like guitars and all sorts of Halloween stuff behind me. As well as some kids' toys they're from my kids. So when we come up here, my kids come in here and tear the whole place apart. So yeah, just to finish off what I was saying, other functionality we'll be looking to add, these are the things that are going to form the like to-do list for each individual episode. So as what I was saying earlier, when I'm working on my main scene here, and we have this whole like black bar down at the bottom, I want to put some stuff in there that's actually useful for people and it's interesting. So as well as some branding bits, I'm hoping to put in like the title of the current stream. So what am I actually going to be doing on this stream, as well as a to-do list. Ideally one that's live. So if I update a Markdown file somewhere, ideally it will update at the bottom of the stream so that like what have we gotten through so far in this particular stream. So that's kind of what I'm planning there. What else? So enhancing the post form. So when you're posting, like by default, it's going to just be text, but we'll explore some options around, okay, well, what should you be able to do with regards to posting? Should you be able to like post with Markdown? Kind of sensible to use Markdown, but there are limitations with Markdown then as well. So again, it's going to really depend on what type of content I expect people to be posting in here. So do we, instead of having Markdown, for example, would it be easier to use like a block-based editor? And I know there's a few of them out there, like Draft and a few others as well. So I need to look at those. Whatever route I would go, it's going to be really important that it plays nicely with React Native. So when you're talking about Markdown, obviously on the web you convert Markdown into HTML. And while you can like embed web views in your React Native application to display like parts of the UI, it's not a great experience in my view. And I've had trouble with it in the past, so I prefer to avoid like having to embed web views for content. I have no problem like bringing up a web view if I'm showing a web page in the UI, or for doing things like auth, if I'm building in social auth and things like that, then it's fine to bring up a web view. But for actual functionality in the app, I'd very much prefer to stay away from using web views where I possibly can. There are Markdown renderers for React Native that work okay, they're not bad. But a block editor might be the ideal because I can translate block. Like block editors tend to save data as JSON, and what I can do is I can translate that JSON into React components, which is probably the ideal approach to take. And the other nice thing about blocks is, if I want people to be able to add a video, I can easily enable that just by adding, a video block type, and then that'll translate to, a video tag on the web, and it'll translate into a React Native video player on component on React Native. So the block editor makes a hell of a lot of sense, but it's going to be probably a good bit more work than just having simple markdown based posting, but we'll come to that. So then you're getting into, okay, browsing around. I might want to see a user's profile. So look at the user profile, find out information about them, look at their feed. So see the posts that they have posted themselves, posts that they have reacted to, that they've commented on, etc. Then you might want to follow users. So when you get into things like following users, it starts to open up questions then around what the actual feed that you see when you log into RetroSumo actually displays. Which also then begs the question, if you're not logged into RetroSumo, should you see a feed or should you have to log in? So that's another question that's going to come up at some point that we're going to need to address. But we'll battle that at another point in time. Let's see. So we've got tons of other things. So notifications then around new followers. So if somebody follows me, I should get a notification. That also brings up the whole concept then of, okay, notification spam is like, the last thing you want to do is like spam your users with notifications. So if you naively implement like a notification for something like liking or reacting to something or somebody following you, you could easily like have a toggle, right? So if somebody like likes, unlikes, likes, unlikes, likes, unlikes, likes, unlikes, likes, unlikes on something, they could easily send you like 10 notifications within the space of a few seconds. So obviously we want to like completely avoid that as much as we possibly can. So we'll look at putting in some level of notification throttling so that we don't like bombard users with notifications as they come in. Then you kind of get into the whole idea of sharing posts. So again, another common social feature. So a bit like what we do on Twitter, like retweeting, things like that. But so taking a RetroSumo post and then like maybe commenting on that post, but the post itself would then be embedded in the feed, things like that. You then like at this point, I still haven't talked about anything to do with like UI and like how the whole thing looks. So obviously putting some like UI concerns, general layout, the overall look and feel of the project, fonts, color schemes, that kind of thing. One thing obviously that needs to be taken into consideration in this day and age when you're building any UI is dark mode. So I'll want to do something around dark mode and make sure that we have a good looking dark mode feature in place. Already talked about time zones and localization. Social authentication is another thing. So to log in with Twitter, log in with maybe Facebook or others. You search. So again, Laravel, like one of the great things about Laravel is like the ecosystem around it is exceptionally strong. So it's kind of like it's batteries included essentially when you consider the entire ecosystem around the framework. So Laravel has a first party package called Scout, which integrates really nicely with Algolia. It's a bit of a pain in the ass to get to work with anything other than Algolia. So if you want to use like Elasticsearch or anything like that, you can get it working, and we have it working in WorkVivo, for example, but it's not straightforward. There's libraries out there, they're fine, but what am I doing? Why aren't I in full video? So the search story, like for a project like this, I think it makes total sense just to stick with Algolia and go down that road. But things I've seen in the past, like that are interesting challenges when it comes to search is like how do you deal with like models with relationships? So generally speaking, you don't want to be like bulk importing models that have relationships, because you're going to completely like destroy your database, especially if you have like multi-server backends and things like that. It's just going to like absolutely hammer your database with queries and things like that. So there's a whole lot of things that you need to consider about at scale with search, but obviously we're not going to hit those for quite some time, so we don't need to worry too much about them. But just from my own experience and working with things like Scout at scale, there's a lot of challenges when you start getting to like hundreds of thousands and millions of records and more in the database. Um, okay, other things, mobile. So everything that we built, bringing that over to React Native and making it available on mobile. But also thinking about how do we build this app in such a way that I'm building it in React on web and React Native on mobile. So there's going to be a ton of things that are going to apply to both. So things like an API layer, for example, for calling APIs, that's going to be the same. Like that code is going to be identical on web and mobile. So it doesn't make any sense really for us to have those bits duplicated across both projects. I'll probably be wanting to build a desktop app at some point as well if this thing takes off. So ideally I'll architect this in such a way that I can bring in shared components or shared library functions at the very least for use in both the React and React Native projects. Looking at Jest for JS tests, then adding some more functionality to user profiles, like bringing in a header image and that kind of thing. Implementing some basic stuff that hasn't been put in, like a change password screen. 2FA, maybe. I mean, I kind of would like to have a look at 2FA just, as more of an experimental thing for a project like this, rather than it being important. Whereas like in a more in a bigger project, obviously things like 2FA are critical, right? So, but yeah, so have a look at what the landscape for things for a project like this are out there when it comes to 2FA. All of this then has obviously been focused on the user. So it's, what about managing all of this thing, right? So if I need an administrator view so I can see all of the content, do moderation, manage users, that kind of stuff. Then you get into some of the back-end stuff that you want in any platform like this: audit logging, usage tracking, metrics, analytics, error and exception handling, and then all of that before I ever get into anything that's kind of gaming specific. So, the whole idea of RetroSumo is for it to be a platform around retro video games. So I want to bring in systems, games themselves, and actually allow people to post about those games and about those systems, have a collection on their profile of systems and games, and build up communities around those. So if I'm particularly interested in the Super Nintendo, for example, or even more specifically a game on the Super Nintendo, like Zombies Ate My Neighbors or something like that, then I can basically engage with the community of people who are interested in that game. So yeah, I need to build out all of that functionality then as well. So a lot of work to do, but again, so it should be a ton of fun. One of the I suppose I said this when I was setting up the last stream, that what the goal of this project is. The goal of this project is not to start another company or to build the biggest social network on the planet or anything like that. I mean, it's a retro gaming community. It's never going to be huge anyway, right? So really the whole idea of this project is for me to have an outlet to experiment with new libraries, new techniques, new approaches that I'm not getting an opportunity to do during the day anymore, because I'm busy at work. I've got 3 amazing young kids who I go home to every evening, and the last thing I want to do when I go home is spend hours on end coding and learning new things and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not in my 20s anymore, so so this is really an outlet for me to do that, to experiment with live streaming and video and all of that kind of stuff at the same time, and hopefully reach people who maybe find this stuff interesting. So I'm going to leave it at there. I was only planning on streaming for an hour, and I've gone over. Par for the course when it comes to this kind of thing, I think. But yeah, so if you happen to watch this or you have been watching it live, then thanks for watching. My plan is to stream twice weekly, so on a Monday and on a Thursday at 4 p.m. British summertime. So that's Irish. In Ireland, it'll be 4 p.m. That's 11 Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. So if you do want to follow along, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or on Twitch. And I'm also posting on Periscope as well. So if you're on Twitter, you should see anytime I'm streaming if you're following me on Twitter. And if you hit the notifications button on those, you'll get alerted anytime I'm going live. I'm going to start putting out tweets from next week on, like, you know, a day in advance and an hour in advance of the stream to let everyone know that I'm going online. But this week really was just about me, you know, messing around with the stream. I didn't really necessarily want too many people seeing it. That said, this is going to be recorded on Twitch and YouTube, so you know, it's out there. So yeah, thanks again, and see you